Welcome to the For Love and Money podcast, the show where business and social purpose meet to inspire a movement for positive change. Here's your host, Carolyn Butler-Madden.
I'm really looking forward to today's interview with Paul Tierney, who is General Manager of Business Development at TPG Telecom, previously Vodafone Australia. Paul has spent 15 years in the telecommunications industry in a range of roles, from finance to strategy and sales to marketing. In his current role, he's responsible for the Lebara and Felix consumer brands. Paul also recently led a piece of work which led to TPG Telecom committing to power their operations with 100% renewable electricity by 2025. Woohoo! The Felix brand is the newest brand in the TPG Telecom family, having launched in November 2020, and has a strong focus on sustainability and on driving positive impact. So we're going to be talking about Felix today, and one of the reasons I'm really excited about this interview is because I'm keen to explore how a new brand within a large organisation can start to create change in that organisation and potentially shift its whole approach. So I think we're going to get some really valuable insights through the conversation. So let's get started. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I've got a general question for you, Paul, before we get into the Felix story. It's actually a couple of questions. What does purpose in business mean to you? And what do you think is the role of love in business?
So I think purpose to me in business means it's, I guess, about why you exist. Why do you do what you do every day? Why do you come to work? Why do you come together as a group of people? I think it's probably got a bit of a broader definition than it has in recent years. A lot more around, for me, companies don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a society, in a community, and it's not, they don't exist purely to create a product or to provide a service or to provide a return for shareholders. I think there's now a lot more recognition that they exist, as part of society, and there's probably a bit of a broader view of a company's stakeholders than there has been in the past, and so. It's I guess less of a narrow definition around we exist to provide a product or service, and forget about everything else, and more around through of course that's one of the primary reasons for companies to exist, but through doing that, what other stakeholders are there, what other positive impacts can we drive, and look at it a lot more holistically than I think maybe is done in the past. And that also includes, I guess, from our perspective with Felix, one of the key stakeholders being, people of the future. So if you think of what the activities you take, I guess, in providing a product or service, there are those things have some positive impacts and some negative impacts, and the stakeholders that I guess are receive the benefit or bear the cost of those things are really what you have to keep in mind. And I guess from a Felix perspective, it was an acknowledgement that we can't just look at providing value to customers today without looking at what impacts are we having and providing that value to customers today, and people in the future don't have any say in that, but they have to deal with the consequences. So it's more keeping in mind all of the different stakeholders.
And I love that idea of people of the future being one of your stakeholders. I was at an event earlier this morning, and I learnt that in Wales, in their parliament, they have a minister for future generations. And you think about it, and it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense given where we are at the moment. So it's so good to hear that people of the future are one of your stakeholders. So can you tell us a little bit about TPG Telecom, because it's a brand new business, really, isn't it?
So TPG Telecom itself, is I guess the result of a merger that completed last July between Vodafone Australia and TPG Telecom. I had previously been on the Vodafone Australia for quite a number of years, but now we've come together, and we have a number of different brands, both in the consumer and enterprise space across Vodafone, TPG, iNet, Internode, Lebara, Felix, that I guess cater for a large number of different customers, and also on the wholesale and enterprise side of things. So my focus is at the moment on the consumer brands, Lebara and Felix. Felix being obviously our newest member of the family that launched in November, but Lebara also being a really important member of the TPG family that caters for migrant communities primarily, and keeping them in contact with their families and friends back in their home countries.
Yeah, beautiful. And I know that TPG Telecom have launched with a purpose of their own, and that's a whole other story as well. But for now, let's talk about Felix. But can you tell us about the secret that our phones are hiding?
Yeah, so we I guess a lot when we launched Felix, we prior to launch, I guess we launched a bit of a teaser campaign around just to highlight I guess some of the negative impacts of something that the people really take for granted, which is your mobile phone activity, and I guess the reality is that it takes a lot of energy to run a mobile network, and obviously that it depends on the country that you're in, but that energy, if it primarily comes from the burning of fossil fuels, then that obviously has quite a material impact on the environment. So it was quite interesting, I guess, when we talked to people in the development phase of Felix around and seeing that light bulb moment happen when you explained to people of, like, you do realize that by using data, there's cell towers are broadcasting signals, and that obviously takes a lot of energy to do that. And just seeing them that light bulb moment where they get in there like, oh, I never thought about, I just sort of thought data existed and never really thought about how it actually got to me. So that was really interesting from our perspective and talking to customers through that period. And obviously we're really happy now that TPG Telecom, like you mentioned at the start, have made a commitment to renewable electricity earlier this year and powering our network with 100% renewable electricity by 2025, which we're really excited about.
That's huge. That's huge. I'd love to know if Felix had some influence in that process. But before we do, because people don't know, what is Felix's purpose? What is the brand all about?
So the brand, our purpose is really about, so I guess we boiled down our proposition into three parts. It's simple, digital, and sustainable. And sustainable, I guess, is the really important part for us. But outside of that, I guess why we exist and why we, I guess, came into launched into the market was really to challenge the industry. From a simplicity perspective, we, I guess, pride ourselves on having a radically simple approach to mobile, and I guess challenging a lot of the confusing offers and terminologies that are out there, and that are just trying to get people onto a really good mobile plan in a very simple way. So we only have one mobile plan. There's one option. It's not confusing. Everything's unlimited, and that's really key part of, I guess, our customer proposition. Secondly, digital. Everything's super simple. really nice digital customer experience. All of our customer support is through the app. And the feedback from that has been overwhelmingly good so far. And then the third part, which is I guess the most important to us, is around the sustainability side. And there's three pillars of that. Being number one, we're 100% carbon neutral service through the government Climate Active scheme. Number two, we 100% powered by renewable electricity ourselves. So we calculate all of the electricity that it takes to provide the service to customers and offset that by purchasing large-scale generation certificates from renewable generators in Australia. And the third piece is that we've built into customers' monthly subscription the concept of one tree per month that you're with us. So we contribute the planting of a tree to reforestation projects both in Australia and around the world as part of a customer's monthly subscription, because we wanted to, I guess, introduce something more tangible to people that they could see impact build over time. And the more customers that we can get on board and the longer they stay with us, the more that number goes up and the more impact it can drive, and it can really help, I guess, communicate the positive impact that we're driving as we go along. So I guess those are the three components. Our real purpose is to I guess to challenge the industry across these three pillars, and not to do come in and do what everyone else is doing, but more to I guess try and push the boundaries.
Yeah, brilliant. So just to give context to our listeners, it's a mobile plan only. So you don't need to buy a phone with it. It's literally a plan. Do you want to explain the proposition, because it's simple?
Yeah, correct. So it's SIM only. So you bring your own handset. So we encourage people to extend the use of their handsets for as long as possible, or to buy refurbished or secondhand handsets. So we don't sell handsets ourselves. We purely provide the mobile plan. So we'll send you a SIM. You order it online. It will get you in a day or two, and you activate through the app. It should all happen very quickly. And like I mentioned earlier, there's only one plan. So we don't have 10 different types of plans. We don't have confusing promotions. There's really one option, and it's it has unlimited talk and text in Australia, like a lot of plans do, but it also has completely unlimited data up to speeds of 20 megabits per second, which is more than enough for the vast majority of people to need on a daily basis, whether it's for watching Netflix or listening to Spotify or listening to podcasts like this or watching YouTube. So we wanted to create a plan that really just gave the broadest cross-section of customers what they need from a mobile plan, without having to get into the complexity of having 10 different plans for 10 different people, and just said, okay, what's a really good plan that we could do for a fair price, and then let's leave it at that, and let's try to keep things as radically simple as we can for our customers.
Yeah, brilliant. And it is simple. I signed up, and I love it. It's simple. And when I get that message every month about another tree being planted, it just reminds you, and it makes you feel good that you have the power to create change as a consumer through your choices. So very, very cool. The way you express your purpose, I love the phone plan with a bigger plan to do right by our customers by doing right by our planet. Why purpose? So why did a company like Vodafone at the time, what was the thinking behind creating a purpose-led brand?
So we didn't this didn't start life, I guess, as we should start a purpose-led brand. We started it as we'd like to launch a new digital mobile plan. And I guess as we got into it and started thinking about, okay, what does a telco, or what does any company that launches in 2020 look like? And obviously that for us, that came down to those three pillars of simple, digital, and sustainable. But I guess on the sustainability side, it was more, I guess it came from within the team. So we started building up a small team of people to work on this. And the more that we discussed and the more that we talked to customers, the more we realized that, this is something that we are really interested in too. This is of course, I guess it very quickly became something of a no-brainer of course, this is something that we would do. This is something important to us personally. This is something that influences our purchase decisions personally. If we have this opportunity to create something new in the world, of course, this is what we built into it from the start. So that's really how it evolved. It sort of came from the small team of people that we had built up from the start, and then it was obviously really great to see it take on its own life as we built it out over the coming months, and more people came into the team, and then when we're obviously building the team, it was top secret for a long time, but now that it's actually live, and as we're bringing more people into the team, and they have an awareness of the brand and what the brand stands for, it's really great just seeing how passionate people are about what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, and I love that it's been inspired by people who knew sustainability had to be one of the pillars, but as you started developing it, it seems like their boldness grew in what they could achieve with the new brand. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. We, I think of the people in the team, none of us were sustainability experts or purpose experts. It was just something that evolved over time, and we said, look, if we're going to do this, then we need to get a lot more involved in this and understand what's possible. And I guess our level of ambition grew over time. From those early days where it sort of started off as, potentially we could be carbon neutral, potentially, we could do make some other commitments, and more over those subsequent months. Then the more that we talked about it and we talked to other people, I guess our level of ambition around what was achievable kept growing over time. So it was really amazing to see that build up until the point we launched, where it was a much more fully formed and ambitious proposition.
And I worked with your team, and it was really interesting because we talked a lot about people like us, how we behave in terms of sustainability. And there was a range of behaviours in the team. Everybody cared, but to different degrees. You had some who were absolutely sustainability champions, and everything they did was about buying the right products. And then others who were kind of like, yeah, I do what I can. But in the end, it came down to this desire to really create something, a brand that could create change in its little way. And I guess, there are challenges with that, aren't there? Because you're part of a bigger company. Vodafone at the time of launch, now TPG Telecom. So you open yourself up to critics who go, yeah, but this is just marketing. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's obviously been something that, we've been conscious of as we started working on this. And to be honest, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. We weren't sure, that was something that we were mindful of as we went to market, but I would say that's about 10% of the customer sentiment that we get through. 90% has been overwhelmingly positive. And I think it's about, one of the things that we're very mindful about was being as transparent as possible. I guess there've been, examples in the past where something like this hasn't been transparent, and it very quickly opens you up to questioning and skepticism from the start. Whereas our approach was very much, look, let's just put everything out there, whether it's around how we calculate our carbon emissions or renewable electricity or where the trees are planted, or let's just put all of this information out there so that people can read it and make their own assessment. And obviously, at the same time, I was aware that TPG was sort of moving on in their sustainability journey as well, and that this commitment was coming on renewable electricity, and there will be more to come. So I was also confident that there were bigger commitments coming as well that we could point to, like this is not just they're setting us up and putting us over here and trying to just make everyone think that this is great and that's all that they're doing. There's a hell of a lot more going on behind the scenes that I was aware of also. But we were also given complete freedom from the management to do what we thought was right as well, which is really, really positive. And they give us their full backing, and nothing was pushed back on around you're going too far with this, or this is too much. It was around just you guys do the right thing, and we'll back you. So that's very powerful when you get that level of backing.
Absolutely, especially in a big organization. And I love the fact that you're using this opportunity with the brand and the business unit to challenge the industry, because I guess that means TPG Telecom as well as competitors. And are you finding it's having an influence within the organization?
I think the again, it was all about top secret prior to launch, but it was really interesting seeing when it was announced across the company at the start. We have like a company-wide social network, and just seeing the positive sentiment come out of that, and the positive sentiment around the commitment around renewable electricity, it was really encouraging, because you could see people liking the posts and commenting on them, and so the feedback internally has been really positive and really encouraging from our perspective, and I think that all helps, I guess, give more momentum to the movement to broaden the commitments elsewhere.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about the people? Like the people within the business unit, has it changed the way they operate in any way? Like in terms of sustainability, their own personal behaviours?
I think it's definitely been a learning journey for a lot of us. Like you said, there was a mix of people in the team who were, I guess, a bit more seasoned sustainability experts in their own personal life as we did this, but a lot like myself, I would think that I'm pretty typical of a lot of people, particularly in my group of friends, that I would have had some interest in sustainability in the past and would have made some choices based on sustainability, but that it's really only in the last 2 or 3 years that it's come a lot more to the forefront of my thinking. And I think that's probably the case for quite a few people in the team as well. There's been a lot of momentum built up in society around bringing awareness to the impacts of the way that we live our lives, and the way that our societies are built, and the way that our products are developed, and the way that companies are run. And that awareness, I guess, has led me to make changes, and also being part of this and having a part of an active conversation, and also a consideration in choices that we make as a business, whether it's companies that we work with or whatever it is that then infiltrates through to your personal life. And there's definitely been a lot of conversations around different options available in the market that are more environmentally friendly, or you can definitely see it filtering through, and I find it filtering through for myself. So, and again, I think it's if we can add to that in the market by being out there pushing this message, whether customers sign up to us or not, we're I guess making people more aware and driving the conversation, and hopefully that can lead to more people like myself becoming more aware of some of the issues that we're causing.
And I mean, your launch campaign was all around educating people on the impact of phones, and I don't know a single person who hasn't been shocked at that. I mean, I think everybody, when that message lands, it's kind of like, whoa, I hadn't even thought about that. So creating that knowledge, it's then the consumer's choice, the customer's choice, whether they act or not, and you do have a really good, simple solution for them to act.
I think as well, it helps you. I guess when you have that light bulb moment, it helps you think about just across your whole life, like what
everything.
It's sort of like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like whether it's like we went obviously through a very rigorous process to get the carbon neutral certification, and as an ex-accountant, I was with a very small team, I was tasked with a lot of the quantification of our footprint and really digging into every single bit of what we do to work out every single dollar that we spent is linked to some sort of carbon output, and going through that process and breaking it down. Then as you go through your day-to-day life, you sort of look around and realize, God, are
you calculating?
Yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming at times. But you're in. If I'm in, even I was in a toy shop with my daughters one day, and they want to buy a toy, and I'm thinking, like, just looking around at all these toys, thinking what sort of impact has been driven by just the manufacture of these things. So it can be a bit overwhelming at times. But once the light bulb clicks for people, you really understand, wow, like this, just the, I guess the way that, not just businesses, but society, like the way that we've built up businesses and societies over time, that it's a lot of it is dependent on energy and on these methods of producing energy that will have an impact for people in the future. It really helps you start to assess across everything that I do. Okay, I should really look at a different option for that, or I should look into getting solar for my house, or I should. It really opens your eyes across everything that you do.
It's got a huge ripple effect in terms of how you think, but as you were talking about before, even the way you think about what suppliers, what partners you bring on board, that ripple effect just grows and grows. And it's an example of the powerful role that businesses and brands can play in solving, some mega challenges in society, some of which, a lot of which business has contributed to, but those businesses who are going, right, well, we're not going to shy away from this. We're going to put ourselves in the centre there and make people aware of the cost, the impact, and provide them with solutions and look at what else we can do to further the solution. So I think it's a really important piece. Can you tell us a bit about your partners in purpose? I know you did a lot of work and a lot of research on who you would partner with, and you were really keen to make sure that it was, credible partners who would help you make really significant impact. Do you want to tell us a bit about them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few different partners, and obviously we're hoping to expand that over time and work with like-minded companies. But again, down to the transparency piece, we were really keen to do a lot of due diligence and really understand these companies that we're partnering with. On the tree planting side, we partner with a company called One Tree Planted. that is a US-based company, but it, I guess is involved in projects around the world, reforestation projects. And we looked into a number of companies, and there's a lot of good companies out there. We really liked, I guess, their transparency as well, because there are a lot of questions when it comes to this. You know, where are the trees being planted? How can you be sure that the trees going to live? Are you just, what level of effort do you go to ensure that, I guess, to increase the likelihood that the tree will live for a long time and therefore have a positive impact. So we I guess investigated quite a few different partners, and One Tree Planted were, I guess, the company that we most aligned with from a transparency, but also we could see the level of rigor that they went into in selecting local partners, and also the not just the environmental benefits from the actual tree planting, but the societal benefits from the areas in which they were running these programs. So both to the local economy and to the people and to the local communities that they're running these projects in.
In what way? Can you give us an example about that? That sounds really interesting.
An example around the community. So obviously,
yeah.
We provide funding to them to fund these tree planting programs, they don't fly in a team of tree planting experts into these countries. Like, it's local people doing the planting in these countries. Of course, they have a small group of people who go on and help project manage things, but it's mostly local people, because it's they know the local environment, they know the biodiversity in these areas that need to grow. It's not just coming in and planting a sort of monocultural forest that is going to have negative impacts over time. It's really about doing the right thing for the areas in which the projects are planting. So it helps with employment, it helps with biodiversity, and it helps also, I guess, bring exposure to some of these areas that I guess can then help attract future funding as well.
Yeah, okay, that sounds great. So you've talked about how management gave you a lot of latitude and sort of let you run the race with, they were hands off. But if I imagine some listeners in large organisations, they might be thinking about all the barriers that are going to be put in their way. Like, can you give some insight into? Did you have any challenges? Were there any challenges that you had to overcome in leading with purpose with this new brand and business unit in a profit-led organisation?
I think from again, we were very lucky. We didn't have pushback. We were given a lot of freedom to do what we want to do. I guess the main challenge so we've been obviously in the market now a few months, and I think one of the key things to try and get right is the balance between at the end of the day, we're starting from zero customers. We're starting a brand new business, and that is very tough. And we have to, my aim and the aim of the team is to use this to drive the biggest impact possible over time. To do that, we have to be a financially sustainable business ourselves. So that means in the early days, a lot of our focus is on, acquiring customers and getting customers in the door. Because if we're not financially sustainable, even with the best intentions, in 2 years' time, we're not going to be driving impact if the brand doesn't exist. I think it's key getting the balance around. We've obviously put a lot of work into I guess, building the different components of our proposition that are really important to us. But now it's around the biggest, the way that we can drive the biggest impact by investing our time at this point in time is by growing the customers that we have. And then when we get to financially sustainable position, we can then expand our ambitions and the level of impact that we can drive. But it's really around focusing everybody on, we need to make this a financially sustainable business in its own right if we are going to maximize the impact that this venture can have. And so that means dedicating a lot of our time to thinking about that, and I guess less time initially around expanding our ambitions around what we can do, because we need to do one thing before we can do the other. So that's probably, I think, one of the learning journeys that we've been on, since launch, and just trying to drive that focus. But yeah, really pleased with how it's going so far. But it's just, I guess, if someone out there is thinking of this, I would put some more thought into that up front. Just to, I guess, discuss that as a team and be more aware of it going into as you go into launch.
And it's a really important point, isn't it? It's the profit purpose dynamic, because the two are both important. In fact, another guest, Jeff Manchester, who's a co-founder of Intrepid Travel, he described it, and Intrepid Travel describe it beautifully on their website. They describe profit and purpose as a package deal. You have to have both, and if you're serious about the impact you want to create in the world, you have to be profitable. So this idea of, no, it's just about the change you want to create and the rest will take care of itself. That's a lovely thought, but especially when you're operating as a business unit and a brand within a large organization, change, you're not going to get instant change. The larger organization isn't instantly going to shift to perhaps a long-term value creation model. They still have to deliver those returns, but it's a journey. And, where you start that journey is not where you end up down the track. But you've got to be able to start somewhere, and you've got to be realistic about your starting position when it comes to the context and the environment in which you're operating, which in your case is, a big organization who, have to deliver those short-term profits. But if you could wave a magic wand, like learning what you've learnt about the environment and climate change and what needs to be done, having gone on the journey that you've gone on, like if you were to look to, let's say, 5 years from now, what would Felix be in 5 years' time?
That's a very good question. I think
with your hopes, if you could really just wave that wand and get what you wanted out of it, what would it look like?
I think, like I said, and I think the model that we designed Felix in a way that completely aligns the success of the business to the amount of impact that we can drive. And I think those things are, with the fact that people's monthly subscriptions are funding these tree planting projects and reforestation projects. And so again, I come back to, for me, my aim is to use this to drive as much positive impact as we can. And we will do that by being a successful business. And that will be almost like a flywheel of the more success that we have, the more impact that we can generate, and that will lead to more success, and that will lead to more impact. And So I think we in 5 years' time, again, I see that just hope our level of ambition growing. The feedback so far has been great from customers, both customers, both I guess prospective customers and customers who have signed up, and that's really I guess positive signs for the future. So we're really positive around where this can go, and that the fact that this flywheel can mean that if we can sit in 5 years, look back and go, like, look at that, tangible, quantifiable impact that we have driven from that idea back in when we sat there at the very start. We have our I guess more short-term target is that we set ourselves a target at the start of planting 1 million trees in the first 2 years.
Brilliant.
Which is a big ambitious goal for us, but that it's something that we're very, very mindful of targeting towards. So after 5 years, I'd like that figure to be multiples of that. And if we can do that, and at the same time deliver a service that customers really enjoy, really like, and that makes customers happy, then I think that's a pretty amazing achievement at the end of 5 years.
I love that you've locked that goal in 1 million trees for the next 2 years. I remember you were talking about it, but I wasn't sure if you'd locked it in. Yeah, there's going to be a big push. How do you get those numbers? Because it's, if you're driven by impact rather than sales, it just opens up new ways of thinking. So I'll be really excited to see how your journey develops. And the other thing, going back to, you said the purpose of the organisation was about challenging the industry to do better. And I remember you shared that the telecommunications industry reputationally didn't have much trust. Your research showed you. So there's a real opportunity, I guess, to hope that in 5 years' time that the industry has transformed itself and you've been part of that transformation. You've influenced that transformation to do better.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, there's a lot of green shoots as well, with different commitments being made on the from an environmental perspective. So yeah, if we can, obviously, we're a small fish in a big pond, but even if we can have a small impact in changing how people look at things, or in opening people's eyes on things, then that's all positive from our perspective.
Absolutely. And Telstra have gone 100% renewable, have they? And TPG
made
have?
a commitment. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys have led, and it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the category follows. So Paul, what advice do you have to other business leaders today who are thinking, maybe they're sitting in an organisation and wondering how they might move forward with this? What, with building purpose within the organisation or within a brand? What's your advice?
I would say, I guess, learnings that we had along the way. First of all, is just make a start. It can be very overwhelming. It's one of these things that you could spend 6 months thinking about it, but actually, until you actually start and make small steps. Like I said, our level of ambition grew over time as we learned more, and as we started getting feedback. So I think the most important thing is getting started. Secondly, it has to be authentic. It should be transparent. It has to be something that is not some sort of top-down, something that's communicated from above. Of this is the. It should be something that's bought into by the team, and I think that was very powerful from our perspective. That it, I guess, came from within the team upwards, rather than that, and it was something that everyone believed in. I think there have been other examples with purpose in the past where it's not that their intention is not authentic, but sometimes it kind of come across as just, I guess not. It doesn't quite resonate with people, or it doesn't quite click. That you're like, it just doesn't fit together. Of why are they making that claim? So I think just making sure that it's authentic and transparent as well. Don't you gotta back up what you do. People are very aware and interested in this, and will ask a lot of questions, and being very transparent with the commitments that you're making and the fact that you're driving it is really important also.
Great advice. Authentic and transparent, like those two things will take you a long, long way. Now, you dodged one of my first question up front a little bit. This word love in business, and I know it makes some people uncomfortable, but purpose is just thrown around these days, at the drop of a hat. This idea of love, whether it's love of what you do or why you're doing it, and bringing like a human feeling into the work you do. What's the role of love within what you're doing and your team?
I think it's a very powerful, motivating factor. Like if you bring that into everything that you do, and if you love what you're doing, and it's you mentioned that human connection there. It's not. I think it's getting away from. I guess it links into. I wasn't completely dodging your question. It sort of links to what I was saying at the start around. I guess being more mindful of stakeholders is, I guess, a bit of a corporate term, but a bit of being more mindful of the people and societies that your organization or products or services touch, and that include people in the future, and that these are not arm's length transactions, or your company doesn't exist in a vacuum. And sometimes customers are not just a number, especially if you work in a large organization, that you can feel very far away from your customer. And, if you're doing analysis, everything just appears as a line on a spreadsheet, and that's not the reality of this at all. So I guess that's what we've tried to bring into Felix, is more of a human connection with the way that we, talk to people. Yes, it's via digital means, but that's because that is what people want. That's the people's preference from how you do it. But the people on the other end of that communication are real people, and they're very focused around understanding each customer's needs and issues, and solving them as quickly as possible. So it's love or connection. I guess it's more about connection and being very focused on people. At the end of the day, all stakeholders are people, and it's about the both how can you amplify the positive benefits of what you're doing for all the people that your business or product or service touches, but also minimize the negative impact, because there's very few things that we do in life that have no negative impact whatsoever. So it's about just being, I guess, acknowledging what they are, being open about them, and then trying to minimize them, because it at the end of the day, there's another person on the end of that negative impact, whether it's someone today or someone in the future.
It's human. It's treating people as humans, isn't it? Whether it's your people or your customers, they're not just numbers.
Yeah.
They're people, and it makes such a difference. Final question for you. 9 years until 2030, which is the target date for the UN Global Goals. We are the generation who actually have a choice to do something about the future. future generations, depending on what choice we make and how quickly we make those choices, won't necessarily have that same choice that we've got today. So what is your message to people, whether they are leaders in businesses today or whether they're thinking of starting a business today? Do you have a message for someone having gone through the experience you've gone through with Felix?
I would say, linked to my previous answer, I would say the most important thing is to make a start. I think, and educate yourself. I mean, there were a lot of eye-opening moments for me as we worked through this. And like I said, I would be someone who I think is quite similar to a lot of my peer group in that, I did make some choices from an environmental perspective, but by no means did I fully understand the impacts that we're having and what that means for the future. And it was only after, 2 or 3 of those light bulb moments that I really got it. And it took time to get there. So first and foremost, I would say get started and also get started on educating yourself on what the impacts are. And once you get to that point, it just all of a sudden opens up this understanding of, wow, okay, now I get it. And therefore you can start to see everything through this lens and start to understand the impact that you can actually have yourself. And I think the more people that can do that, whether it's from, brands like our own putting, shining a light on some of this, and obviously there's many more brands who are doing that, and hopefully that grows and grows over time, or whether it's major companies making commitments, or whether it's governments making commitments, and really it has to be all of those things in order to drive the level of impact that we need. That these things continue to, I guess, help shine a light and help people appreciate the issue and take more action themselves and educating themselves around where these impacts will be driven from, and B, what we can do both as people and as within our professional lives as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And there's so much opportunity in it as well, isn't there? And that's the exciting thing to see. It's that sort of win-win that you can achieve out of it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of interesting things happening in this space with green tech, and a lot of which is really positive that a lot of funding is now flowing into these areas. So there's lots of opportunities for people to get involved and make an impact, which is really encouraging. But a lot has to happen. So yeah, it's but definitely a lot of positive signs.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for taking the time to chat today. And yeah, just to give us an insight, it's such an interesting thing to see, a brand, a business unit within a bigger company. And so I think the Felix's journey is going to be a really interesting one to watch over the next few years. And I wish you luck and good fortune with it. We're rooting for you on the sidelines because we want to see this work and we want to see the influence that you can have on a larger business grow. So really excited to see that. How can people find out more about Felix, and how can they get in touch with you if they want to reach out and have a chat?
So our website's felixmobile.com.au. You can find us also on all the usual social platforms, primarily Instagram and Facebook. Or you can download the Felix mobile app from the App Store or Play Store. It's to sign up for our service. It's a completely app-based service, so you complete the order through the app. So and myself personally, I'm on LinkedIn. So feel free, anybody, to reach out, and always happy to have a conversation.
And we'll put links in the show notes. Thank you. Thanks again for chatting to us. Really appreciate it. Cheers, Paul.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the For Love and Money podcast. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into the purpose movement, visit us at thecauseeffect.com.au. And remember, doing good is good for business. So if you're not doing good, then what are you doing?